Good evening, everybody. I'd like to say hello to all of our members, our patrons, and friends. As you know, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty earlier this evening. Thanks to our incredible technology staff, we were able to recover from this. And so we will proceed with our meeting today, both on Zoom and on YouTube. First thing I'd like to do is to be able to start our meeting off with the pledges. So Judge Todd, if you could please bring the flag up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now for the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas
flag. I pledge
allegiance to
thee, Texas, one
state,
under God, one and indivisible. Yeah, first off, I'd like to go ahead and personally thank everyone who participated or volunteered for the first Collin County GOP once-in-a-lifetime golf event. They are still calculating the P&L, but it was a huge success with over 110 golfers participating and over 15 volunteers from the Republican Club at Heritage Ranch, registering, directing, marshaling, and observing the various prize holes. Give yourselves a big pat on the back. Right? Our next point of interest is in accordance with the bylaws, the new updated bylaws were passed by the board, membership, and on September 18th were passed and approved by the HOA. Great job. The new bylaws became effective immediately. Please see our website to review and/or the HOA website. The other thing I'd like to do is to remind everyone that we've got some extremely important events coming up next month. October 13th is the first day of early voting. And also the election of officers is taking place during the October 26th meeting. So I would please hold both of those dates open. Right? The election of officers will be for the presidency of the club, director of membership, director of meetings, director of marketing and communications, director of legislative and campaigns, secretary, treasurer, and historian. Please see the website for the description of the duties and responsibilities and terms of the offices. The nominations committee are the individuals who you should be getting in contact with in case you want to nominate someone for one of these offices is Ben Brown, Nancy Lewis, Mike Petrick, Georgina Fusak, Richard DiVirgilio, and Bill McClure. Please contact them to put forth a nomination for any of the above offices. Please remember that is a requirement that all nominees must be qualified, give their consent to serve in the capacity of the office and for the term. At this point in time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Joan. Joan, would you please introduce the judges?
Yes, thank you. Well, one of the best parts of my job is introducing our presenters, our speakers. And today we have a very special treat for everyone. We have our district judges from Collin County, and they will be speaking to you. The coordinator is no stranger to us at Heritage Ranch. In fact, she's just one of us. Maybe one of these days she'll move in. But anyway, she's been coming to Heritage Ranch for quite a while. And she, with her, I would say, magnanimous smile and her glorious voice, and that is Judge Andrea Thompson. She will be introducing the other judges, and she will be coordinating the program. So to all of you, welcome.
Thank you, Joan. Sorry, guys, I don't think I'm going to make you sound as good as Joan just made me sound. So I want to thank you all for having us. It's always a treat when we get to come out to the ranch. And I know we're all disappointed that we couldn't do that in person, but we're thrilled to be able to visit with you this way. What I thought we might start off doing is having each of the judges take a minute or so and talk about, give a little background on themselves and their particular court. Each of the courts are just a little bit different. In our presentation that we have in a few moments, we'll go through specifically what all of the courts collectively do, but we'll let everybody talk about what it is they do individually in their court. And then a little bit about their background and things, and then we'll kind of move into the presentation we have. I'll screen share so that everybody can see the slides. Why don't we, judges, let's keep it easy. We'll go in numerical order. So I think that means Judge Novak, you're first. You want to take it away?
All right, well, good evening, everybody. My name is Judge Tom Novak. At least my name is Tom Novak. They put the judge in front of me about last October when I was appointed by the governor to take over for the 366th District Court, which was previously run by Judge Ray Wheelis, whom you all know. So I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to take over his court last October, as I said. So I'm nearing my 1-year anniversary here on the court. We have been working very hard to keep up with everything that's been going on, especially with the COVID and how that's kind of changed things, which y'all will hear about as we go on today. So thanks for having us, and I always appreciate all you guys at Heritage Ranch. And I enjoyed my time out there. I guess it was about a couple weeks ago now in terms of seeing everybody. So I hope to see you guys again soon. Y'all know most about me already, I think, so I'm not going to cover too much. But for those of you who don't know, I was an immigrant to the U.S. at a young age, coming from a communist country where I learned to hate socialism. And now I'm working to keep that out of our courts and out of our lives here in America. So I'm very proud to do that. Serve in the military as an Air Force reservist as well. And prior to me getting on the bench, I was a criminal defense lawyer. And prior to that, I was a prosecutor. So I've been on all sides and handled thousands of cases in my time, and looking forward to talking with you guys. So thanks.
Thank you. Judge Smith, you want to go next?
Everybody, thank you so much for having me. I'm Ben Smith. I've been the presiding judge of the 380th District Court since 2012. Heritage Ranch has always been so kind and so supportive. And so I thank you, you all so much for inviting us to this forum and giving us an opportunity to address you and ask for your support. I don't have to tell you all how important this election is. It's pretty well understood that when the Democrats try to take down a county, the first thing they do is try to take down the courthouse. And I really believe that. If the Democrats take our courthouse, they will take our county. That's what happened to Dallas. Straight ticket voting has been eliminated. And if you know the numbers from the primary and the runoff, you know just how hard and aggressive the Democrat turnout was, and how much effort is being put into their campaigns to take over our courthouse and our county. So I would just ask Heritage Ranch members and anybody watching, if you're registered to vote. If you're not, please register. If you're registered to vote, please make sure that you go all the way down the ballot and support your Republican judges. It means a lot. I don't think that anybody wants a judge to make rulings based on their personal preferences or their political preferences or religious beliefs, but to make decisions based on the rule of law. And that's what Republican judges do. That's what we endeavor to do, is to make decisions based on the evidence and the rule of law as the law, according to what the law meant at the time it was enacted. And I think that's extremely important for our county, for our state, and for our country. So thank you all again very much. And please reach out to me if you have any questions or if you'd like to discuss anything about our campaign. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Smith. I think numerically I'm next. I'm Andrea Thompson. I'm judge of the 416th District Court. A little bit later in our presentation, we're going to talk about what the numbers for each court means and district. There's confusion very often that we're in a district. It's county-wide for us, but we'll talk about that a little bit more. My court in particular is a general jurisdiction court, so I hear family, civil, and criminal cases. I've been on the bench for 4 years now, and as most of y'all are aware, I was able to serve as the district clerk for Collin County for the 4 years prior to taking the bench. That was at the request of our district judges at the time. And one of the things that we did that was the biggest project we had, got a lot of pushback at the time, but we moved to electronic filing. And when we did that, we made all of our court records at the courthouse electronic. And I'll tell you what, I'm glad we all went through that together, the bar and the other departments of the county and the district clerk's office and the judges and everybody worked together, and we muddled through it. And it's a good thing we did, because now with the pandemic, that's one of the main things that has made sure Collin County hasn't skipped a beat. So I'm excited to get to talk to you guys a little bit later about what all we've been doing to have our court cases remotely. But I'm proud to say that since everybody did the hard work a few years ago to make our cases electronic, that has served us marvelously as we've gone electronic and online with all of our court hearings now. I grew up in Plano. I'm a product of Plano schools all the way through. And then I went to Texas A&M for my undergrad. There, I think our Aggies judges outnumber everybody else on here today, right? And then I went to South Texas. I came back to Collin County as quick as I could and had a law practice here before I took over as the district clerk. So it has been my honor to serve Collin County for a number of years now, and a treat always anytime we get to spend time with Heritage Ranch. So thank you all for having us. So I think numerically, at least, maybe not in seniority wise, our next judge is Judge Nguyen.
I'm like one of the baby judges. I'm Judge Lindsay Nguyen of the 468 District Court. I'm one of your newest judges. I was actually appointed almost a year ago. As of, I think it was Saturday, it was 1 year I was appointed, and I took the bench on October 1st of 2019. And I am so proud to serve here in Collin County. It means a lot to me. I do have a lot of roots here. But one, I want to say thank you so much for having us. I always appreciate getting to be before this group. And I know I saw some of you this last weekend at the block walking that we did. So thank you again for all your service and all your work you're doing to help get the vote out and make sure people understand about voting all the way down the ballot, and that there's no straight ticket. So it's so important. Just so you know, I graduated from Frisco High School back when there was just the one high school. It was a fairly small town. I did go to the University of Texas at Austin, so I am the lone, I think, Longhorn of this group. So I went there for undergraduate and I went there for law school. And then I came back to Collin County, and I served in Collin County for approximately 10 years with the DA's office. So I prosecuted a lot of cases, crimes against children, family justice unit, things. A lot of my practice focused on protecting children and protecting victims of violent crimes. That was really important to me during my service there. I left there to start doing family law because I really wanted to advocate for the best interest of children. It was very, very important to me, and I could see that a lot of problems started at home. And I really wanted to have a part in that and have a say in that. And so then I was very fortunate to be appointed to the 468th bench, which is a family and CPS bench. So I do hear all family law matters and then child protective services matters or child welfare matters. Again, I'm here in McKinney with my husband. We have 2 boys. They are 5 and 7. They are very, very busy. We are playing all kinds of sports and baseball and soccer, and I'm always just running all over the place, but they're also my biggest campaign managers, campaign fans. They help me out with the yard signs and block walking, so I'm very fortunate to have them. So thank you all again for having us here. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Judge McCraw?
Good. Hi, thank you. All right, good evening. My name is Piper McCraw. I'm judge of the 469th District Court. And like Judge Nguyen, my court is also a specialty court. So it specializes in family law and CPS. And just a little bit about myself. I grew up in Plano as well, product of the Plano schools all the way through, just like Judge Thompson. And got out, went all the way down the road to SMU for undergrad, all the way over to Fort Worth for law school. Haven't quite made it out of the Metroplex, but that's okay. I know where everything is around here, hopefully. And then came back to McKinney. So I started my legal career at the DA's office, like I heard from several of the others, as a prosecutor. I loved my time there. After that, went into private practice, and then I was appointed by Governor Abbott a little over 5 years ago, and then was reelected in 2016. As Judge Wynn said, we, with the specialty family courts, we spend a lot of time dealing with families who are in some of the worst situations that you can probably imagine. And then also dealing with CPS cases, again, trying to protect kids from neglect, from abuse, from some really horrible situations. I will say the CPS kids are incredible kids. I think some of their strength is it's sad, but it's amazing. So I've really enjoyed my time getting to know some of those kids and those types of cases. I also have the opportunity to serve on a statewide board for the Texas Children's Commission, where we work statewide to try to better the child welfare system. We also do a lot of education and training throughout the state for both judges and attorneys to help teach the CPS issues and ways to handle those cases better. So again, I think like Judge Wynn said, I think we both just have a passion for kids and for families and wanting to make sure they're protected and taken care of and things of that nature. So I've enjoyed my time so far. Like I said, it's been a little over 5 years, and hope to keep that going. So we'd appreciate any support you can give us in November. Again, I think all of us on here have Democrat opponents. So we are fighting hard to try to keep Collin County red. So thank you all for your time tonight.
Disappear.
All right, thank you. And last but definitely not least, another one of my Aggie colleagues, Judge Baressa.
Howdy, I guess I should say. I'm Andrea Baressa. I'm the judge of the 471st District Court in Collin County. This court, just like Judge Wynn's court, was created by the Texas legislature last year in response to the growth in Collin County. And so while Judge Wynn's court was created to focus on family law cases, which had really been surging in our county over the last 5 or 6 years, my court actually handles civil cases. And for those of you who are wondering what that means, it means basically anything other than people getting arrested or divorced. So it could be anything from a car wreck to an insurance case, a property dispute, a business dispute, securities litigation. We handle all kinds of civil cases in the 471st. I've been on the bench for 1 year and 3 months. I was appointed last year by Governor Abbott, and we wasted no time getting that court up and running. I think we tried almost a dozen jury trials before the pandemic hit, which for a civil court is, I think, doing pretty good. One of the things that was really important about creating this court was the fact that in a general jurisdiction court, civil cases are typically the cases that take the back seat, because if you've got someone that's sitting in jail awaiting trial, or if you have a child that's been removed from their family's home, those cases typically take priority over civil litigation. So what that generally meant was if you had a business dispute, an employment dispute, or a property dispute or something like that, you probably weren't going to get reached as quickly as the civil and family law cases. And so by creating a court that specifically prioritizes civil litigation, we're able to better respond and more efficiently handle those kinds of cases in our county. So I, as has been alluded to, I'm a 3rd generation Aggie. I have a graduate degree from the University of North Texas and a law degree from SMU. I practiced in civil litigation prior to taking the bench. And in my probably last 3 to 4 years of practice, I really focused heavily on civil appeals. And so what that means is that a very large part of my practice was devoted to studying what trial court judges are doing right or wrong. And I think that that experience very well prepared me to take the bench and avoid some of the pitfalls that cause civil cases to have to come back to the trial courts to be retried. I've loved every minute on the bench, and I've loved every minute on Zoom, and would be so grateful to have your continued support this November. I do have a Democrat opponent. He's been running since before I got the job, so I guess that means it's not personal. But we still very much want to continue serving our county, and so we're just grateful for any support and encouragement that you can offer, making sure that you let everyone know we don't have straight ticket voting, and your Republican judges need every single down ballot vote that we can get. it doesn't matter who you send to Austin if you don't have judges on the bench that are going to enforce the laws that they pass. And so we just would encourage you to please support all of your candidates all the way down the ballot. And we thank you so much for joining us tonight and for being willing to listen to what we've been doing to try to keep the courthouse running during the pandemic.
All right, we're going to go through a little bit of a presentation that gives you some more specific data about what your courts are doing. And then I want to leave plenty of time, so we'll try to go through that relatively quickly so we have plenty of time to have questions and things inevitably that come up. So give me just a second here to share a screen, and then I think we'll have Judge Smith kick us off with our court structure and have everybody learn a little bit more about what it is that we do. Okay, let me get us to a slideshow view. Okay, there we go. And I know this is going to be hard to see on here, but it gives you kind of the basic idea. So Judge Smith, you want to take it away from here and let everybody know kind of what the different court levels are, what the court numbers, where those come from, and what a district means if it's not a voting district.
Sure. Well, in the Texas state system, we have at the first level, we have municipal courts and justice of the peace courts, and they generally hear misdemeanors that are punishable only by a fine as far as criminal cases, and also civil lawsuits with a limited amount of damages that you can seek. Justice courts are traditionally run by justices of the peace who don't have to be lawyers. They don't have to have law degrees. They are truly the courts of the people, for the people. And so they're more informal. The rules of evidence don't apply in justice court proceedings. Municipal courts typically are known to handle very large volumes of traffic tickets and Class C misdemeanors, as are justice courts handling Class C misdemeanors. At the next level, you have county courts at law. County courts at law, you have a constitutional county court, which is in larger counties. They're not judges, they don't have judicial duties, but we call them the county judge. They're established by the Constitution, and each county has a county judge that in some rural counties, the county judge may have some judicial obligations, but for the most part, county judges are more like county mayors, and they're the head of the commissioner's court, which is kind of like a county level city council, if you will. County courts at law, also referred to as statutory county courts. Statutory county courts are established by statute, and they hear misdemeanors, which are punishable by a fine or by jail time up to 1 year. So you have Class B misdemeanors, which are punishable by up to 180 days in jail, and Class A misdemeanors, which are punishable by up to 1 year in the county jail. And then, of course, you have our statutory probate courts, which hear exclusively matters involving probate and guardianship. County courts also have jurisdiction over civil matters up to $200,000 amount in controversy, and they also largely hear cases involving eminent domain. Next, you have your state district courts. Now, state district courts have statewide jurisdiction, but they have venue according to a judicial district. Most judicial districts are comprised of a county, but if a county is really small, a judicial district may be comprised of more than one county. All of the district courts with judicial districts in Collin County are judicial districts comprised only of Collin County. So you might find a few district courts in East Texas or West Texas or more rural areas that have a judicial district comprised of more than one county, but for areas like ours, you're going to see most judicial districts comprised of one county. The number that you see assigned to a district court is merely the number in order. That is, so for example, my court, the 380th, it was the 380th state district court that was established by the state legislature. I think we're up to close to 500 now, state district courts. District courts are the highest level of trial court in the state of Texas. So we have jurisdiction over family law matters, civil law matters that have no ceiling as far as the amount of damages. So there could be a minimum of $200 in controversy, a maximum of could be millions of dollars being sought in damages, but there's no ceiling on it. And we also have original jurisdiction over felony criminal matters. So anything ranging from felony drug possession to capital murder. So a general jurisdiction district court can hear matters involving the death penalty. So it's really the most high conflict, most serious types of cases that are heard in a trial court. Collin County now has 13 district courts. 7 of those are general jurisdiction district courts. So those courts hear civil, family, and criminal felonies. We have 4 specialized district courts, 3 are family, 1 is civil. And then we have 1 court, the 417th, that hears primarily all of the juvenile cases, but she also hears other matters like other family law matters. And then we have the 429th, which by statute is a general jurisdiction court. However, because the presiding judge is married to the district attorney, she does not hear any of the criminal matters, and she only hears the family and civil matters. That's the 429th District Court Judge Jill Willis. Based on the rulings that we make in the county court level and the district court level, an appeal of the decisions made can be brought to the 5th Court of Appeals, which has jurisdiction over Collin and several other counties. It's located in Dallas, and they sort of check our homework. They either affirm or reverse based solely on the record that's presented to them of what happened in the trial court. Courts of appeals generally do not hear evidence or make findings of fact. They simply look at the record from the trial court. They look at what the trial judge's decisions were and what they were based on, and decide whether the trial judge made any errors, and if they did, whether it should be returned to the trial court. And then, of course, from the courts of appeals, we have 2 high courts. Some states and in the federal system, you have 1 Supreme Court, but in Texas, we have essentially 2 Supreme Courts. We have the Supreme Court that hears all of the civil and family matters, and also has some original jurisdiction for some types of writs. And then you have the Court of Criminal Appeals, which is our state Supreme Court for criminal matters. And they hear appeals from all of the courts of appeals, but they also have original jurisdiction in direct appeals, including all death penalty cases. So death penalty cases go straight from the trial court to the Court of Criminal Appeals, and they skip the intermediate courts of appeals.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on now with Judge Novak and talk a little bit more specifically then about what our courts do. Hold on, let me move us. Whoops. There we go. Judge Novak, you want to take it away on our population and what that means for our court numbers?
Sure. I think the people over at Heritage Ranch probably know that people have been moving into Collin County and building a lot of houses right around there and growing. So that's kind of what we have up right now, is kind of the projections of where we're going to be after the census that we're in the middle of taking currently. There's some projections that we're probably going to be over 1 million people in Collin County, or at least assuredly we'll be over 1 million people, but we might be closer to 1,100,000 or even above that, based on kind of where people have been moving and the numbers that we've had coming into Collin County. Now, of course, all those people means more cases. It means more crime. It means more divorces. It means more civil cases and civil disputes, car accidents. Everything comes along with that because we get more people. And that's just what happens. Growth is great when it can help pay for cool things, but it adds to our workload at the courthouse. And we've been trying to manage that as we go along. And I can tell you from experience in the past year that I've been on, it doesn't seem to be slowing down at all. So this graph right here represents our case numbers as they've grown over the last few years. And then the red that you see there is kind of the projection, best case scenario of what we anticipate the growth to be. As you see, we've kind of just shot up in terms of the number of cases. And so each court will get, roughly the same number of cases each year. But we have to spread that out amongst the courts, and it's just the numbers are going to keep going up and up and up with the more people that we have coming into Collin County. And there are some projections I've read that as of 2050, there'll be more people in Collin County than there are in Dallas County, just because we have a lot more houses, a lot more families moving in, and not as much industrial area or anything like that. So we're still growing, and the top half of Collin County hasn't even filled in yet. So just prepare yourselves for a lot more people, probably a lot more traffic, and then just a lot more going on at the courthouse.
Thank you. Judge Nguyen, why don't you talk a little bit about the breakdown of case types, please?
All right. So this is a pie chart from 2019 to kind of give you a breakdown of the types of cases we are dealing with at the courthouse. And as you can see from the numbers, we are getting a lot of cases, and this is just 2019. So as we are growing, we are getting more. Just so you can get an idea of the new cases we had in 2019, the family cases, we had over 10,000 of those cases. They made up about 40% of what we were hearing at the courthouse. Hence the reason we now have 3 specialty courts that just handle family law matters. And family law matters are your divorces, your child custody, child support, enforcements, things of that nature. You see at the bottom, we have the CPS, which is about 193 cases. It's 1%. And although it's a really small piece of the pie, we always say it's probably one of our more important areas. That's when Child Protective Services comes in and removes the children from the home, where there is neglect or physical abuse. Usually it's pretty extreme circumstances. We have a lot of hearings. They end up taking a lot of time in our courts. And those are the types of cases we don't want to mess up. We don't want to get them wrong. People need their due process. There's just a lot at stake when we have those kids that have been removed. As you can see, our civil caseload is growing exponentially. We're at almost 5,000 cases just in 2019, which is about 18%. Again, hence the reason we needed a specialty court to hear that. With all those businesses we have moving in here to Collin County, of course, we have a lot more business disputes with more people. There ends up being more car accidents. There's just a lot more civilly that people are fighting over contracts and money and things of that nature that they've got to get their matters heard. So we had quite a bit this last year. There's civil and criminal matters. It's about a little less than 3,000, so about 10%. Again, those take up a lot of time, and those are really important that they get heard pretty quickly. Those are our bond hearings. So when someone has been arrested and is our jail, and they need to go before a judge on some sort of bond condition or bond hearing, again, their liberty is at stake. They're locked up. So we need to make sure that they get before the judges and they get their matters heard. So again, that makes up about 10% of what our courts are hearing. Our criminal matters, that ranges, all of our felony offenses, our aggravated offenses, everything, our, crimes against children, any type of, anything that's a felony and above. I mean, that are capital offenses. That's where we're at there. We've got about 7,000, a little over 7,000, it's 27%. And again, as you can imagine, when someone's life and liberty is at stake, there's a lot more trials, there's a lot more hearings, there's a lot more that goes on in those cases, and they do require a lot of time and attention from our judges that do general jurisdiction and handle those matters. And then as you see right here, the last piece of the pie is the juvenile, which is about 950 cases or 4%. That is, again, it seems like a shorter piece of the pie, but again, those matters take a lot of time. Those are our cases where you're ages 10 to 16 that are charged with a criminal offense. And when you're young and you're charged with a criminal offense, there's a lot more rights that you have to get before the judge on a more frequent basis, every 2 weeks. You're entitled to much more hearings and having your matters heard and actually resolved at a much faster pace than just a normal criminal case. With that, we show you the new cases that have been filed in 2019. We have the next slide is our cases that have been disposed in 2019. And we show you the
Trying to get there. It's
okay.
there we go. Here we go. This is dispositions then.
We show you the dispositions just so you can see that the pie chart is very comparable to what you see coming in. So the number of cases we have coming in, we have tons of them, but we are also working really hard to dispose a ton of those cases each year. We have to. I mean, with the population growth and with everything happening, we're here to serve our community and making sure these matters get heard and these matters get resolved. And so as you can see from the family law matters, 42% of them got resolved in 2019, a little over 10,000 cases again, still about the same percentages on our CPS and our juvenile matters. Our civil matters, I think it's 18%. I think it's slightly higher than what cases were coming in as the cases were being disposed. So about a little over 4,500 cases were disposed last year. Civil criminal matters, 11%. That was more than the 10% that came in. And then our criminal matters, about 6,400 cases were disposed last year in 2019, which is 25% of our caseload. So as you can see, I mean, the judges, again, with the population growth and the amount of cases that are coming in, we are having to work exceptionally hard to make sure that we are getting those same amount of cases disposed so we can continue to move the wheels of justice in the courthouse.
Thank you. Let's have Judge Baressa then talk a little bit about what that takes to keep things going. Let me get the next slide up there. There you go. Judge Baressa, take it away.
Sure. So right now, we're seeing on average over 2,000 cases that are new filings in each district court every year. Basically, what that means is in order for us to hear the same number of cases and dispose of the same number of cases each year as what's being filed, we need to dispose of 9 cases per day. That's 53 minutes of time per case, and that's time on and off the bench. So if you think about getting ready to resolve a case, whether it's on a motion or whether it's a trial, the judge doesn't just show up and sit on the bench and hear everything and make a decision. There's a lot more preparation and after consideration that has to take place. And so all of us are taking time to read pleadings, read motions, read case law, review statutes, and be ready to hear what's presented to us in court. And then once the hearing is over or the trial is over, we then have to go back and deliberate on the evidence that we've heard. And sometimes we have to draft orders or prepare rulings to reflect what we've decided for that particular case. And so all of that takes time. It's not just the time that we spend that are actually sitting on the bench and hearing arguments and evidence. So basically what that means for us is if we have a trial that's going to last 3 days, that's taking up 27 cases worth of disposition time. Now, obviously some cases take more time than others. We do have cases where parties want to non-suit, they want to dismiss their case, or they want to enter into a plea agreement in a criminal case, or you might have a husband and wife who work out an agreement on their divorce. But even on those cases, they still require some court time. For instance, if in the 471st, if a case involves a settlement that involves payments to be made to a minor, that often requires court approval. And all cases can't be disposed without a signed order from the court. So even on matters that are uncontested, we still have to carve out time to deal with those cases and make sure that they're processed and that they do reach an actual conclusion. And so It's a very cumbersome process to keep up with the number of cases that get filed in the county. And I'm pretty sure that the other judges are overly joyed that Judge Wynn and I joined their ranks last year and helped alleviate some of the burden. But even adding the 2 new district courts last year, we are incredibly close to the same number of new filings per court that we were at when the legislature started discussing the addition of 2 new courts in Collin County. So all that to say, we are working incredibly hard to try to keep up with the new case filings in Collin County, but with the incredible growth, and in particular with the backlog on jury trials that we're all going to be experiencing thanks to the pandemic, we have our work cut out for us. And so it's a fun but very demanding role that we fill, and we're just working very hard to keep up with the pace of the litigation and the cases that get filed in our courts.
Thank you, Judge Burress. I think now would be a good time for me also to answer one of the questions that we already had from Ted. He asked me to talk a little bit about the Juvenile Detention Center. And one thing to note that I think a lot of people don't understand is district judges in Texas have a lot of administrative powers and responsibilities. So much like we have a separation of powers at our national level, we have 3 branches of government nationally, we do in the state as well. Within your county, we have a similar separation of powers. So you all I know are very familiar with our commissioner's court, and it's their responsibility to handle the business of the county. Essentially, they hold the purse strings. They're responsible for budgeting and spending the money for the county. And because of that, way back when in the Texas Constitution, they decided that it probably wasn't smart to also allow them control over the purchasing department and the auditor department and some of those departments that are really wrapped up with how the money is spent. So they wanted some checks and balances in there. And so they decided that the purchasing department and the auditor fall under the purview of the district judges. So our group of district judges serve as the overseer, if you will, of our auditor's office and the purchasing office. So we have regular meetings about that. We have to approve their budgets annually. There's a purchasing board that oversees a lot of that. We deal very closely with the auditor's office. In addition, there's 2 other major departments that are controlled administratively by the district judges. That's the adult probation department and the juvenile detention center and juvenile probation department. And so both of those fall under the purview of the district judges. So we work very closely with Mr. Hadnot, who is our administrator of juvenile probation. We go every year, all of the judges go and make sure we tour the facility at our juvenile detention center. And we have to certify that everything, as far as we can tell, is good to go for another year. We also deal with their budgets and everything having to do with the juvenile detention center. It's located, if you haven't been there, it's kind of over by our minimum security. If you go down that road, it's between minimum security and the animal shelter. So, and then the other is our adult probation department. So that is run by an appointee of the district judges. Right now, it's Yoon Kim, who you all may have met. He was the district clerk for a time. And based on his history in the district attorney's office, it was a really good fit for him to take over the adult probation department when the other department head retired. So Mr. Kim is now running adult probation. But in addition to the 9 cases a day we need to dispose, then as you can imagine, there is a lot of administrative time that's taken up making sure we manage all those other departments and keep things on track there. So that was something I was surprised to learn until I got to the county. I had no idea that judges don't just get to show up every day and have court. They also have to handle all of the personnel and administrative things that go on in those other departments. So I wanted to show a couple of charts here. We've been talking about the growth and the data and what that means for our courts. And if you look at it historically, when you talk about cases per population, you can see how much it's growing. And this pink section at the bottom of this chart is important because it tells us one unfortunate thing for sure, and that's that criminal cases are growing at a rate of 10% now. There have been different trends in the growth rates of different kinds of cases. For a long time, the family law cases were our outlier. They were growing exponentially. And now the family cases are growing at a more relative rate to the overall annual percentage by average. But our civil cases are way up. And I think Judge Novak alluded to that earlier, Judge Baressa has, is we've had all of these headquarters. So Toyota, State Farm, all of the businesses that are moving their national corporate headquarters to Collin County. What happens with that? They did it in large part. Collin County is attractive, but the Collin County courts are attractive. We follow the law, so we're predictable. They know what they're going to get when they come to court in Collin County. That's a good thing. But that also means we're attracting a lot more of those corporate headquarters, and they get to put a choice of venue clause a lot of times in their contracts. And so they're saying anytime they have a breach of contract issue or a dispute that involves their company, then it has to be settled in Collin County. So as you can see, we're almost at 8% growth in our civil cases that are being filed. And then unfortunately, as I mentioned, we're at 10%. As part of the county, and more particularly Plano, is getting more and more absorbed as it seems into Dallas County. We have kind of an urbanization of part of the county going on. And unfortunately with that, and just increased growth in population and everything, more people, unfortunately means more crime. So relative to other places that you can live, it's still incredibly safe in Collin County. Also, if you look at it particularly, Plano, even though we have an increase, is still considered one of the top 5, I think it is, safest cities for a population of its size. So while we have a 10% growth in criminal cases, and that could be scary, as a percentage of population, luckily for us in Collin County, it's still not something that I think needs to concern people yet. It concerns us because it means those cases are being added, and they're things that we're going to have to take on and deal with. And these are compound growth. So it's kind of like your credit card interest. It just keeps accumulating every time. So it's a lot. As you can see through this, we'll just go through it quickly. Our Collin County courts handle almost more population per court than anybody else in the surrounding counties except Denton. Denton has actually added some courts, so I need to adjust this so they're a bit more commensurate with us. But as you can see, we're doing about 150% of the work if you look at population per court of any of our surrounding counties. And then based on the Office of Court Administration, we are likely going to have to add new courts to keep up with the need. At the time that we, in 2017, they thought we were 4 courts behind. If you looked at number of cases, population in the county, you compare that to other places in the state. At the time that they said that we needed 4 courts, we added 2. Because as usual in Collin County, we can do more with less, and we use our technology and do things better and quicker than in other places. But as you can see, until our population levels off and therefore our case numbers level off, we're going to continue to have to grow. It's unlikely that we'll be able to add courts in this legislative session. So we're just going to all have to buckle down and try again in 2 years with what they're projecting for the budget and everything for the state. So I'm going to turn it over to Judge McCraw so she can start telling you, we'll all jump in here in a little bit, but we'll let her start telling you all what we have been doing, the impacts of growth on the county and what that means for the courthouse. And then this slide here, we'll start to get into what has it looked like since March when we were no longer allowed to have court in our court building anymore. So take it away, Judge McCraw.
Thank you. So one of our things that we have been looking at is how much space we have left in the courthouse. As you've heard, we've added several more courts over the past few years. The courthouse, we are now getting to the point of bursting at the seams here. So we are looking at ways to maximize that space, but it could at some point in the, I guess, pretty near future, it could look like possibly needing to expand the courthouse, which I think was anticipated with the way Collin County is growing, but that's something we're definitely going to have to start visiting with, and the commissioners are going to have to start considering as well. So when March hit and the pandemic essentially shut everything down, I am proud to say, as one of the Collin County District Court judges, we did an immediate pivot and were able to immediately keep the courthouse going. I will tell you, Collin County was on the forefront of the entire state of how to keep things running, and I'm proud to be a part of that. Once the courthouse, once everything kind of went into lockdown in that mid-March week, we were immediately able to turn and start running all of our things virtually. So started doing them via Zoom. There were some cases that needed to be heard and took a bit of a more priority to be heard, things dealing especially with domestic violence, temporary restraining orders, protective orders, things that needed to keep children safe, and also criminal offenses where we needed to make sure that somebody was off the street and not able to hurt anybody else and keep the citizens protected. So we immediately started holding all of our hearings virtually. There were, I shouldn't say all of, there were a couple of times where some of the criminal matters still had to be heard in the courthouse, but we were able to quickly keep everything moving. And I think that left a lot of people with some sense of reassurance, because it was a scary time for everybody. And imagine being in your home in a domestic violence situation and feeling trapped, or even with children, not being able to make sure that they're protected. As you can see, from the time of March till the latter part of June, your district court judges had already moved close to 5,000 cases. We have already had several, I think we're probably well over 5,000. I'm not sure what the number is, but just actual Zoom hearings. And so I'm proud that we were able to keep things moving, but we were able to do that safely. And so even today, still, if it is not something where somebody has to be in the courtroom, we are still operating remotely, because we want to make sure that nobody feels threatened for their own health and well-being in coming to the courthouse, but we still want to take care of their case. And so we had a lot of things like adoptions still needing to go through. Those children need permanency, they need stability, and we wanted to make sure those could happen. Really just trying to make sure that everybody felt like their concerns were being addressed. So at this point, all of us are still operating remotely. We've also designated specific days if somebody does need to be in the courthouse. If one of the courts needs to be functioning in person, then we have specific days where we can separate out and we don't have a lot of people congregating in small areas. So we've been able to distance that. The Office of Court Administration is who really controls the district courts and really all the courts in Texas themselves, and the Texas Supreme Court. And they had mandated that we weren't allowed to have jury trials for a period of time. I think Judge Thompson may have alluded to that earlier. And so the mandate from the state was that we weren't allowed to do those until October 1 unless you had prior approval from the state. And they were kind of working with some of the courts to try to get some test runs and things going. At this point, we are starting to figure out ways to start having jury trials remotely, or not remotely, but having jury trials in a very controlled fashion. So we are getting back to functioning normally as much as we possibly can. We've taken steps by moving, instead of having jurors sit in the jury box, if you've seen the courtroom, we've moved them to the gallery area where we're able to space people out. And so they're able to maintain that 6-foot distance. We've also turned counsel tables to where the attorneys can then face the gallery and be able to face the jury. They've installed plexiglass in the courtrooms. We've got new microphones that are coming in that can better hear and monitor the sound and voices and things like that. So I will tell you, I thought everything was going to shut down, and I think I thought that way for about 24 hours, and then we were back to running full speed ahead. So I'm proud of the work that everybody's done. We've really buckled down and kept going.
Thank you, Judge McCraw. Yeah, I just want to follow up on that, because you may actually start to get a jury summons, friends or family members do, and we want to make sure people don't panic. There's a lot of information on our jury website that gives details about what's happening with the juries, but we've basically taken the 600-person jury room and turned that into the jury selection room, one court at a time. So we're only going to put 75 people into that room that seats 600, to then narrow it down to the 12 that will go to the courtroom to sit in the gallery space that seats 65. So we're extremely conscious. We've worked with the Office of Court Administration, the State Health Department, our County Health Department. We have a written plan to try to make sure that we can do this as safely as possible. But we've had people who've been waiting, particularly in criminal cases, they've been waiting in jail for 6 months now to have a disposition and to try to have their case heard. So we're to the point now, since the state said we can start having jury trials October 1st, we're going to try to do that as safely as we can. I've got one more slide I was going to show you guys, and then we were going to talk a little bit about politics here. Now that we gave you an idea of what we do, we need to talk about what we need to do to keep our jobs, since as you've heard, it's a lot to handle and it's a lot to manage, and that's why we think experience matters. One thing you can probably notice from this is the info here for a lot of our opponents, and I think you'll see from not a single one of these do they say that they're a Democrat. So we're all proud to be Republicans. We're proud to represent the values and things that means, and apparently they are not so proud. So in the case of Judge Novak's opponent here, Sam Johnson, I think there's some unfortunate probably hope there that the name recognition and some confusion with our former congressman who served us so distinguishedly for so long. I think that they're sort of relying on some confusion there. And because of that, then we were thrilled to be able to meet with you guys tonight. We want to talk a little bit about the election and what Heritage Ranch can do to help us. The most important thing is to get out the word to vote down ballot. I know you all are most educated, most informed voters, but your friends and family members probably are not, and may not be aware that we've lost the straight ticket voting. And so we're really going to have some help from everybody to try to push the voters to vote all the way from the courthouse to the White House, as the slogan has been going around. So that's the biggest key that we need from you guys so that we can continue to do the work that we're doing for Collin County. And with that, then I think we were going to take some questions from the board. Is that right, Joan?
Yes, that's right. I wrote something here, but I didn't know how to, did you see it? Do I push for everyone or what do I do?
Let me see on the chat. Maybe, or you can just go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, in speaking with a friend who used to work in Dallas County in the court system and has moved to Collin County and is connected with the district courts. I don't know in what capacity. And she's very happy there, but she said it is so different. And so my question to you is, in what way would it be different, Dallas County, Collin County, and what makes Collin County unique?
How about we let Judge Novak answer that? He's actually worked in both courthouses, and most recently, I think of any of us, practiced in both. So you want to field that one for us, Judge Novak?
Yeah, so as I joke around with people, sometimes I say that I've escaped communism twice, once from communist Poland and once from Dallas. Being that I was in the courthouse down there on a daily basis, I can tell you that things changed quite a bit in 2006 when they had the switch and the Democrats took over, and it literally was chaos. Many of the judges didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know really what their job was supposed to be. They didn't know what they signed up for, and they certainly didn't have the experience and qualifications necessary to do the job and do it well. There were a few that did, but the majority of them just did not. And what that does is it just causes everything to grind to a halt. The lawyers don't know what's going to be expected. They don't know how to advise their clients. They don't know what to tell people when they're arrested for crimes or they've got cases coming up. Those kinds of things just cause cases to slow down or basically stop. And everybody just kind of waits to figure out what's going on. And the truth is that sometimes they never figure it out and we never have a good answer. And so that was always the difficulty as a lawyer practicing in Dallas, is just trying to figure out what this judge might or might not do. It's never follow the law. I can't look it up in a book and tell you, hey, this is what the judge is supposed to do, and this is what I expect the judge to do, and we're likely going to win our case. Those kinds of things just were out the window. The judges down there don't follow the law to a large part. They kind of do what they want on a lot of cases because they know that there's so many cases that the likelihood of it getting overturned won't happen. And now, of course, we've lost the Court of Appeals, so any chance of their cases getting overturned and sent back down to do the proper way is slim to none. We have obviously a judiciary up here in Collin County that is different, that is one works consistently, constantly, moves a lot more cases per court, per judge. And again, you get the consistency of judges who follow the law, follow the law as it's written, and don't legislate from the bench. And that's been something that I think has been consistent. Now, we do have some new judges. I'm a new judge. Judge Wynn and Judge Baressa are new judges in Collin County to some degree, and people have had to kind of figure out, how we like to, run our courts and do things, but they know that they're getting judges who are going to follow the law as it's written, and that we aren't going to change things based on that. And again, that gives everybody a good sense of comfort in that we know what to expect, we know what the law is supposed to be, and we can advise our clients as lawyers and expect the right thing to happen in those cases. And so things are just better. And then they're better run administratively as well. We have a lot of smart, capable, motivated people who aren't just sitting there collecting a paycheck. They're all working hard for you guys. We do recognize it's a service, and we're proud to serve, and that's really what's been going on, and the differences between the two counties.
Would it be, and can I just say, would that be a foreshadow of what could happen in Collin County if indeed we cannot push you all over the line?
Absolutely. And as I've said, the rules change. If the judges come on board and they're from a different party and they sweep all of us out and they take over, then again, the rules change. And then 5 years after that, you can't get it back, because all of the rules that you thought you were playing by have changed in the middle of the game. So to use sports analogies, it's if all the rules of football get thrown out and then all of a sudden you're using basketball rules on a football field. That's kind of what happens. It's chaos, it gets crazy. And when you turn around after a few seasons, you recognize you can't ever go back to the way it was because you lost what happened before. So.
Well, and Joan, I'll give you a specific example. So as you saw on that slide, with the volume that we have to use docketing control measures. One of the things we do is impose reasonable time limits. A lot of the Collin County lawyers will tell you they're in favor of the time limits we impose on our temporary orders hearings, because it requires everybody, including their client, to get to the most critical piece of their case, and then save the rest for trial. So it's something like a temp hearing. We have a 20-minute aside rule. It's very popular with the family bar in Collin County. Dallas lawyers don't like it because they're used to having unlimited time. Well, as you can tell, we have to dispose of 2,100 to 2,300 cases a year. If I gave every single person that's participating in a case unlimited time, if I even gave them 50% more time than I give them right now, I wouldn't hear their case for 2 years. So right now, with the restrictions and time limits and things that we impose, we're able to dispose of almost as many cases as we receive every year. If I give them even 50% more time, that's going to add another year to my disposition rate. If I give unlimited time, as my opponent is suggesting is the fair thing to do, you wouldn't have resolution in your case for 4 or 5 years or longer, which is what happens in Dallas County. So this isn't about me being unfair. What's unfair is to not have a resolution for you, or to have your kids age out before your divorce is finalized, or to have your business lose all of its money because it took years to have the injunction hearing heard. So William Gladstone has said justice delayed is justice denied. And the Collin County judges have taken the position that we want to pursue justice. That means imposing reasonable time limits, having reasonable docket control measures, and getting people a resolution that they deserve in a timely manner. But that is one of the biggest things, because my opponent is campaigning on unlimited time, take all you need, because she has no comprehension of what that means for the volume of cases she would have to hear. And then that 2,300 more cases come next year and 2,300 cases the year after. You would never get a resolution again in a Collin County case.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining.
I've got a comment and then a question. First, I'm very impressed with the time constraints you have as judges individually to get your job done. Thank you for all your hard work. And especially thank you for carving out time to come to our patio meetings and meet our people and let them see firsthand the quality of people you are and the dedication you have to the law. With that, I've got kind of an off-the-wall question. I'm going to pick on Judge Smith and Judge Wynn. Tell us what has been the most surprising thing to you becoming a judge and also being on the bench for a while in the case of it. What's surprising about being a judge? Something that's different that you expected, the expectations were different, or something that's very rewarding. So pick on Judge Wynn first.
There's something to be said. I was a courtroom attorney. I did a lot of trials in the courthouse. I got to practice in front of most of these amazing judges my entire career. They set the bar actually really high for me, and I appreciate that because I had a good example. So when I took the bench on October 1st, I was ready to hit the ground running because I knew that that's what was expected here in Collin County because that's what they do. One of the things that's been a little different for me though is when you are the judge, you're no longer presenting the case. You don't have any control. We were talking about this the other day. You don't really have control over how the case is presented or how the evidence is presented or what witnesses are called. You're there to call balls and strikes. You're there to listen to the evidence, determine what's admissible. You're following the rules of evidence. And then based on what you're hearing, you're having to make decisions. And again, those decisions are based on the rule of law. So you're not necessarily advocating for your case. You're not presenting your case. You're there as the judge to listen to the facts and evidence, and then apply that to the laws that we have in effect as they're written and make the best ruling based on what you have. So it's a very different, as a new judge, it's just a different mindset from when I was a practicing attorney and I was consistently either advocating my position, whether it was my family law cases or as a prosecutor, and I was trying to prove the evidence and get the evidence in. Now I'm the one sitting there making the determinations. I will say the other big thing as a new judge is just, we were talking about this again the other day too, with another presentation, is patience. You learn a lot of patience as a judge, because there's, especially with everything that's happened with COVID and having to do remote hearings on Zoom, as y'all can probably imagine, just learning the technology and making sure the witnesses have a good connection and that they're not muted and getting the evidence in. You're not in a courtroom. You can't physically hand over the evidence to the court or to the witness. So there's just been a lot of different changes, but just the patience and just the change in being a practicing attorney in the courtroom versus being the new judge. But I have thoroughly enjoyed my first year on the bench. But again, I'm very grateful to the examples and the mentorship I've had from my judicial colleagues here.
Well, I second that. I think one of the biggest surprises for me was how hard the decisions are that we have to make. Usually when we hear a case, it's been months or sometimes even more than a year after the case was filed. And usually the cases that end up being given to us to decide are the ones where the lawyers, the parties, they've worked diligently with all of their efforts to try and resolve the conflict, and they just weren't able to. And so usually when a case comes to me and that I have to decide, I understand that both sides have pretty much put their hands up in the air and said, we could not work this out, so here it is. And those tend to be the most difficult decisions. The easy ones get resolved, they get settled, they get compromised, and we don't see them. The other thing is, I think that really surprised me is just how different, as Judge Wynn alluded to, the role of an advocate is with the role of the judge. I mean, you usually think of going from lawyer to judge as being a natural progression, but really it's a progression to an absolutely opposite role. Instead of being an advocate, instead of arguing, we have to be neutral. We have to listen. The job is a lot of listening. Instead of asking for a decision to be made, we're the ones that have to make the decision. Asking for a decision is so much easier from my point of view than having to be the one to actually decide the matter when it involves someone's liberty, someone's property, someone's children. Having to make those decisions is extremely tough. Instead of being passionate, we have to be dispassionate. So you really need a lot of the opposite qualities that you had as a lawyer. You need to embrace those other qualities, the opposite qualities, I think, to be a good judge. And that, has been very surprising to me over the years. Even though when you're a lawyer, you appear in front of judges all the time, I don't think you quite appreciate how fundamentally different the job is until you actually wear the robe and you're actually up there, making those decisions. It wasn't until I put the robe on that I think I really appreciated just how difficult and different the job is from being a lawyer.
Thank you.
I have a question, Andrea. You can pass this question on or answer it yourself. Several of the judges have been appointed by Governor Abbott. How does that work? He doesn't know all you guys. So does he have, what is his conduit?
Judge Baressa, you want to take that one? We'll let one of our judges that recently got appointed handle that.
Sure, I'd be glad to. And I think this is information that my opponent would have liked to have had last year when he started campaigning to be the first judge of the 471st District Court, and yet didn't apply for the position. So the process when a new court is created is essentially it's considered a vacant seat. And so rather than have a court that's been created and just let it sit empty until the next election cycle, what happens is that seat gets filled by the governor, and the governor has an appointments office. And if you have time, you can actually go to the governor's website and look at the application that we've had to complete. I think Judge McCraw has completed the application, Judge Novak, Judge Wynn. There's 2 separate applications that you have to complete. And it didn't quite require having all of our calendars and yearbooks from high school, but it came pretty close. It's a very detailed application process. And then once you've submitted those applications, the governor's appointments committee will notify you if you've been selected to go down to Austin for an interview. And then subsequent to the interviews, the governor reviews the feedback and all of the comments and input that's been received on the applicants, and the governor makes a selection, and that person becomes the judge of that court until the voters can have a say in who will sit on that seat during the next election cycle. And so Judge Wynn, Judge Novak, and I were the 3 appointees that the governor selected for the 3 open benches in Collin County last year. It's a different process to be appointed than to be elected, because one thing that I think is very difficult is to communicate to voters about your qualifications and your experience, particularly in relation to the cases that are heard in the court that you're applying for. And so one thing that was important to me in the appointments process was to communicate to the governor's office my experience handling civil litigation and appeals. You wouldn't want, for instance, someone whose entire practice has been devoted to, say, traffic citations or city ordinances or something like that, to be handling the next 8,000 to 10,000 family and CPS cases that come through your Collin County District Courts. And so that's one advantage to the appointment process, is that you do get the opportunity to communicate in detail about how your experience qualifies you for the bench. And so what we are asking for help from you and from all of our Republican clubs is to help communicate to the voters our experience and our qualifications for the kinds of cases that we hear, because it really does take a lot of experience to preside over a particular type of court, and relevant experience, not just having a valid law license. And with respect to running for election, while I'm sure that all of us are more than happy to answer to the voters and to have the voters judge our efficiency and our effectiveness, it's difficult to get that message out to 1.1 million people every election cycle. And so that's one thing that we really appreciate your help on. I would just add, I wanted to add on what Judge Novak and Judge Thompson were speaking about earlier with regard to this particular election cycle and what's so critical. As you've heard, we've had to make a lot of changes to handle all of the cases that have come through our courts during the pandemic. And that has required teamwork like you would not believe. We have all had to communicate about how we're going to prioritize cases, how are we going to use our shared facilities, our central jury room and things like that. And we've all been able to reach a consensus on how we can all keep our dockets moving in a way that makes sense and prioritizes cases in a way that keeps justice moving, but at the same time treats different cases fairly according to the circumstances. And if the Democrats were to sweep the Collin County Courthouse this election cycle, the majority of the incoming judges would be Democrats. And I cannot imagine that that would mean that things would continue to move along as productively as what we've been able to establish over the last 6 months. My worst nightmare would be that would be a complete reversal of everything that we've been doing over the last 6 months to try to keep the courthouse moving forward. And so I think it's incredibly critical this election cycle to keep our Republican district judges, all of the judges down the ballot, so that we can continue to work together cooperatively and keep cases moving and not have gridlock and justice grinding to a halt like Judge Novak was talking about earlier. So I know that's a little bit off topic, but I just wanted to add that piece with respect to this particular election cycle and why it's just so important to vote for every office down ballot. We haven't gotten to see you all in person, and I know that some of you know some of the judges better than others. But let me just tell you that the level of teamwork and cooperation that we've all had with one another has been nothing short of miraculous these last 6 months. You've got 13 different judges with 13 different dockets, and we've just really come together and I think been a really great example for the state of how to keep a county moving.
Thank you.
One thing that I would add to Judge Barresa's response is, just like President Trump relies on Senator Cornyn and Cruz, the governor, I believe, in my opinion, relies on our legislative delegation out of Collin County. And I believe that they'll reach out to Senator Paxton, State Representative Sanford, and the other members of the Collin County legislative delegation to vet appointees and to get an opinion regarding their merit and their qualifications for an appointment. And of course, the governor, in addition to appointing vacancies, always appoints the presiding judge of a newly created court. That's all.
Thank you. Andrea, just one question. I'm curious. Has the COVID increased crime? Has it remained flat or has it decreased?
It's hard to say. Much like I think Judge McCraw was talking about with our kiddos, the problem is we all assume family violence, abuse of children and things like that are on the increase. It only makes sense. We have a surge of it around Christmas, for instance, when people are home more, and when they're home more and around each other more, that tends to lead to high conflict. We get a lot more family violence cases. So we have every reason to expect that those two types of crime and abuse have significantly increased. The problem is kids weren't at school, where some of our biggest reporters, we weren't going to church, so their Sunday school teacher couldn't see them. And so we know there has to have been a significant increase in some of that crime. I think it's unfortunate that it will likely have gone unreported during this time period because our like I said, our standard reporters weren't there, and people weren't then having to go to work, and it was easier to cover up if you were a victim of domestic violence. If you weren't going into an office, nobody was going to see you. So in terms of arrests and things like that, a lot of the municipalities, I think, have been trying to either keep them locally or do detainers and talk to people instead of necessarily arresting them unless it was a more violent crime. And things like that. There were also some limitations early on from the state about the types of things that could be done. So I think during COVID, the filings of criminal cases is down just a bit. In part two, we've had to do with social distancing and things. We're only running one grand jury right now. They're having to work double time to try to get it in. We usually have 2 grand juries going. We only have 1. So unfortunately, we don't think the crime itself is down. We think the reporting of crime is down. And then we think, unfortunately, because of the social distancing and things like that, and our ability to only have 1 grand jury, the filing of those cases by the district attorney's office are also down for now.
Thank you.
Judge Thompson, question regarding down ballot voting. In your experience and what you have seen, that you're on the bottom of the food chain, if you will, on the ballot, have you got any ideas as far as how to message and how to make communications to our members?
But mainly, it's just a matter of educating them that there is no more straight ticket. As we understand it, there's 7 pages on the ballot. So we're also making sure people know we've added a week of early voting. It starts October 13th. And to make sure that they, I would say go early. I would go that first week so that you give yourselves plenty of time, particularly with social distancing, not having to wait in line, and to get through all 7 pages of that ballot without the straight ticket. But really, it's word of mouth. We're just trying to get the word out person by person and educate them. We're all block walking on the weekends, and that's the main thing that I tell people. And I have yet to ring a doorbell where they seem to have heard that there is no straight ticket. It's been a surprise to 99%. I see the other heads nodding. 99% of the people that we've talked to are unaware that there is no straight ticket. So we need all of you on your Facebook page and any social media that you have to remind people there's no straight ticket. They're going to have to vote every one of those 7 pages to be able to get to the bottom. There's something called an undervote, and we can look at past when there were, even with straight tickets. So a certain number of people would go in and hit the straight ticket button, and then a certain number of people would vote their ballot. And you can tell every subsequent race as it goes down the ballot from the president on down. So you usually have presidential races, congressional races, our state reps. Then it gets into other things and then on down to us. Every single one of those races, as you go down the ballot, loses a percentage of votes. It's literally, it's just mathematical. It's like clockwork. So it happened anyways with straight ticket. It's going to be even more significant now. That we don't have the straight ticket voting. So it really is just a message for all hands on deck to tell every person you know that we've got to get them to go to the bottom of the ballot.
Thank you.
Well, Joan, I think we've kept y'all a while.
I think so. Well, it's been extremely interesting and enjoyable. But I would like to extend some thank yous to a number of you and the way you work. First, I'd like to thank all of you. I think all of us are very proud of the Collin County judicial system going on. And all of you and those who are not here on the panel are responsible for that. So we'll do our best to keep you in office. And certainly we hope it will be very successful. But thank you all. You are outstanding, truly outstanding, the service you deliver to Collin County. And then I'd like to thank you, Andrea Thompson, Judge, as coordinator of this. I know we've been in contact with each other, and it certainly lived up to expectation or beyond. Thank you, and thank all the panel members. Thank you all for what you have produced tonight. And I would like to just say something to our members who come on either tonight or in the future, because we will be sending this out. I'd like to thank them for taking an interest and ask them to keep looking at the programs that we put on our website and through our newsletter, because this is the only way we can get to our people. With COVID, and we haven't been able to have live meetings in the clubhouse. So I'm hoping it's working. Also, Ben Brown and his Get Out the Vote, the patio meetings. We're doing our best out here and we'll keep doing it certainly through to the end. Something about our club, there is some possibility, don't misquote me, anyone, that we can open it up for possibly October or November. We will continue to do the political part. Any of the candidates we haven't yet been able to feature, we'll certainly invite them. You are all welcome if you know we're alive up here. But I do want to impress upon our people that we will always film this, because some people do not feel comfortable coming together, even with a mask and social distance. And we respect that, but we'll do our best to come live and keep coming virtual. But we will be there for you 100%. Good luck to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Joan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to, again, thank all the participants. I know that this is a stretch for you folks. You work all day long, and now we're cutting into your family time in your evenings. But trust me, we really appreciate what you've done for us to address the down ballot. We have managed to appropriate a number of Collin County's door hangers. I don't know whether you've seen them, but they list all of the candidates. And with our Get Out the Vote meetings, and we're making those available to all of our membership and encouraging them to be able to get copies of those, to be able to take with their families, take to their families. We've told them that they can take that into the booth with them, all right, in order to be able to assist them in being able to go all the way down the ballot. You know, look at it and just follow it right down the ballot. Should make life a lot easier for you, okay? We also have that on our website as well. I'd also like to remind all of our members that the board elections are coming up on October 26th. Please, again, notify the nominating committee, which consists of Ben Brown, Nancy Lewis, Mike Petrick, Georgina Fusek, Richard DiVigilio, and Bill McClure. If any of you have an interest in serving on the board, please be sure to what do you call it, get in contact with those folks for a description of the duties and the term and the requirements. You'll find that on our website. So look for our emails. We will continue with our Get Out the Vote announcements, times and locations. We're putting a very large effort. Ben has got a large group of people who have mustered together in order to be able to make the candidates available for you to meet the candidates face to face, which is the best way to know your candidates and to ask intelligent questions. So again, Andrea, thank you very, very much for your cooperation. I know we had a little snag earlier today, but believe me, it has gone beyond my expectations, and you've assured us that this is possible. So thank you very much and have a great evening, folks.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Good night.